Rebecca from the Tea Smith here in Omaha, Nebraska. We've been celebrating our 20th anniversary here all year long. So stop in, check out some of the new blends of tea that I've been blending all year round. Some of them are really pretty good. We did actually bring in a new tea from Shizuoka Prefecture. It's a yuzu gukicha. It's really pretty nice. It's got freeze-dried yuzu bits in it and a dusting of matcha too. So come in, check us out. We're on 78th Street in between Dodge and Cass. And yeah, I'm looking at, it's right about time. So today I just wanted to talk to you guys about teas of Japan. A little bit of the history. I don't have a whole lot of time, but I do have tea to sample out on the patio and back. So once I'm done here, I'll be sampling tea the rest of the day there and can drop some more history on you and weird facts if you want to. So tea was not native to Japan. Tea came to Japan from China in the late 800s, early 900s. And so at that time, China was grinding tea down into a powder and beating it with a bamboo brush into a froth. In that period, that was the Song Dynasty of China. And you will note that tea bowls from the Song Dynasty in China were actually very dark colored, and the tea that they were using, it was more of a black tea. It was more of a black tea. Tea has natural saponins in it. So when you beat tea into a froth, it gets bubbly, frothy, obviously. And that part was the part that was prized in Song Dynasty China for the complexity of flavor. And then it was served with just a pinch of salt. Salt actually negates your bitter taste receptors. So that was the point there in China. So monks, Buddhist monks, traveled with tea seeds and tea leaves all the way from China to Japan, and also imported this preparation method too. So later on, this was developed in Japan through their methods of processing tea into what we now see as the Chan no Yu ceremony, the green tea ceremony in Japan. And it underwent several different iterations. You will see a little bit of that later today over in the Japanese garden. So please make sure you check that out. That starts at 2 in the Japanese garden. But so you should see, I'm going to trip myself. They'll use a bamboo brush or whisk. This is called a chasen. There's also a bamboo measuring spoon called a choshaku. And then a tea bowl called a chawan. So methods of processing the tea leaves have definitely over time have grown and changed through the years. And you see in China, they had what looked like an ab roller to grind the tea leaves down. Later on, that turned into a granite mill. This is a picture of a granite mill that's grinding tea leaves down into matcha. And then later on, you have many of those in an enclosed space to create lots and lots of matcha dust. But nowadays, it does not even look like this. This picture is maybe 16, 17 years old. Now they do not use granite to process the tea for ceremonial grade matcha. They actually cut it and mill it using air. The reason for that is because they're wanting to avoid heating the tea leaves from friction. They're wanting to preserve the bright green color of the tea. And you can't take pictures in the facilities now. My boss went there just last year with the Sister Cities Association and visited a couple of our tea partners out in Japan there. The majority of our Japanese teas come from Shizuoka Prefecture. So Japanese tea growing, it tends to look a lot different than tea growing in other parts of the world. The tea is kept to waist height and picking height and looks like hedges. Often in Japan, there's a lower amount of labor available to pick the tea. So a lot of the tea that is picked in Japan is picked by machine. They've done a lot of work into making these picking machines that have all of these tiny little scissors, and one man on one side, one person on the other side, and they take their hedge trimmers of many, many scissors, tiny little scissors, and it gets sucked up into a nice big bag of tea leaves to sent to their processing. And so in the 900s, when tea was first brought over to Japan, like I said, the tea was processed, and much of it was done in the ground tea fashion and mixed with a bamboo brush and frothy. Later on, the emperor in China decided that with all of these people trading tea in place of his currency, he better figure out something else. So he took the tea and said, I want the most beautiful tea. So then that put into effect tea growers actually creating teas that weren't pressed into bricks or dims. It made the tea growers create teas that were beautiful. And so then loose tea became the mode of drinking tea. These were just starting to get imported into Japan, and the Japanese were just starting to learn about the loose tea processing and how to go about achieving these same results. When the shogunate decided that Japan was going to be shut down, close the borders. So Japan entered its isolation period at that time. So the tea growers in Japan really needed to figure out in a cultural vacuum of how to make their own teas and how to create them themselves. So just to give you an indication of what was important to the Japanese people about tea is the very first book that was created in the Japanese language on tea roughly translates to drinking tea for health or drinking tea for longer life. So the Japanese were drinking tea for the health benefits of it. In fact, very early on, when the shogunate overindulged and was ill, one of the monks, Senorikyu, I think, actually cured the shogun with tea. The guy had a hangover, and the monk gave him tea. So that kind of set the stage for what was important to the Japanese people and tea. Rather than the beauty of the tea, it's the health of the tea. So the Japanese tea growers, when they're in isolation, they're not getting the cultural feedback from China and the different ways that the Chinese people were creating tea. They created a different method to process their tea. The majority of their tea was green, and they looked for how to preserve the health benefits of tea. And so out of that is born the tea process where it is steam dehydrated. So Japanese green tea is processed with a wet heat and steam dehydrated. Totally counterintuitive if you ask me, but amazing, because out of that you get very bright vegetal, spinachy, seaweedy flavors, whereas the Chinese green teas, they're processed with a dry heat, and you have more of a roasted vegetable, roasted nutty quality to Chinese green teas, whereas Japanese green teas are going to be very grassy, very bold. You can try those out on the back patio too. So I do have a couple of examples of some teas that you will see. I have Sencha Shinryoku here. So Sencha Shinryoku, it is a straight green tea. It's a very high quality sencha. This does come from Shizuoka Prefecture. This is from the Honeyama area. I like to steep this one at about 150 degrees. It has a nice, bold, grassy taste to it. So please come and sample that outside. I gotta check my time. I can talk for hours and hours, and I get time blind, and we'll keep on going. You know it. Another one that I have out there is called green kukicha. Kukicha is a twig tea. This is made at the same time as when they make sencha. So they actually pull out the twigs and the center ribs and the stalks of the tea and pull it out using static electricity. As cool as that is, because it's a little lighter than the rest. The sorting and separating of tea in Japan uses chromatology and static electricity. So seeing the different colors of the different parts of the leaf through a machine using a laser vision. That's not what it was called, but anyway, that's what brings to mind. And then separating it out using static electricity. So cool. This is actually my favorite tea. Like I said, it's also known as a twig tea. This is higher in L-theanine and lower in caffeine than other teas. So all tea has a compound in it called L-theanine amino acid. L-theanine, they've done studies to show that it helps your body to process cortisol. What is cortisol? Stress hormone, yes. Hopefully I didn't say that too loud. Your stress hormone. Cortisol is your stress hormone. So L-theanine has been shown to help your body process that. They also have created like concentrated L-theanine as a therapy for people with ADHD in order to help them regulate their sleep cycles. Pretty interesting. They've done studies to show that L-theanine helps with neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's and dementia. Pretty cool stuff. Also recently, I should have brought some tea with me. The Alzheimer's Association released a study on matcha and elderly people with Alzheimer's, and showing that it helps them retain social cues better, as well as regulating their sleep. I definitely should have brought some tea with me. But anyway, so L-theanine is in all teas. It's just a little higher in cookie chow. Now, I mentioned that during the isolation era of Japan, that farmers were discovering new ways of making tea. Not only were farmers, tea processors learning new ways of making tea, but the general public wanted more tea. But in that era, about 80% of the population were rice farmers. They had very little access to tea. Tea was primarily for the monasteries and for the upper classes. So, very little tea went to the lower classes. Now 80% of the population, what do they have a lot of? They have a lot of rice because they are farming it. So then you get genmaicha. Genmaicha is a green tea with toasted and popped rice added to it. A lot of people ask, what's that popcorn doing in there? No, it's actually popped rice. But you get this beautiful, bright green tea, very grassy green tea, and counterbalance it with toasted rice. So it gets this kind of cereal-y quality to it. This nice, warm cereal-y quality with this cool, green quality as well. So it's a really lovely tea. Now, our genmaicha it is from Shizuoka. It's a later picking of sencha that's used in with the genmaicha. We also have genmaicha with matcha. So there's a dusting of matcha over that one. Quite lovely as well. Really great as an iced tea. I don't have that one for sale today, but you can always check out the Tea Smith. We're on 78th in between Cass and Dodge. Now, we also have what's called hojicha. Hojicha does not look like a green tea. It is still a green tea. Now, this one has been roasted at a high heat, and that roasting process actually breaks down the caffeine molecule. So, similar to how a breakfast blend of coffee is going to be a light roast, it's not going to be roasted as dark and deep as some other coffees. that has more caffeine because the longer you roast the coffee bean, the less caffeine will be in it. So those dark roasts, they may taste very bold and wake you up, but there's less caffeine than a light roast. Same with this guy here. The roasting process breaks down the caffeine molecule, so this tea is actually extremely low in caffeine. That roasting process also releases a compound called pyrazine. Pyrazine is actually very healthy for your heart. They've done studies to show that. Now, this one is not from Shizuoka. This one is actually from Uji, Kyoto. You can steep this one at boiling, however. It's nice and roasty, toasty, a really lovely, lovely tea. Now, what makes a tea green, black, oolong? Can't we all just get along? That's the way.
Oh, no, I'm good. Thank you, though. That's okay.
Thank you. I think the dust kind of just got to me there for a minute. But what makes the tea green, black, oolong, white, pour? It's the way the tea has been, treated. So green tea undergoes what they call a kill-green cycle. So that kill-green cycle essentially is heating the tea leaf to prevent the enzymes from interacting with oxygen and oxidizing the tea. So you're keeping the tea leaf green through heat. Now, when you're going to a black tea, the oxidation process has been encouraged. There's a little bit of heat, a little bit of moisture added, and it encourages the enzymes within the tea leaves to interact with oxygen and oxidize the tea leaves. Similar to if you cut open an apple and you eat half of it, and half of it sits on the table waiting for your 5-year-old to eat it, and then they look at it 5 minutes later and it's turned red, that is oxidized. And then they go, I don't want that. I may be speaking from experience on that. But anyway, that is oxidation. So your tea leaves turn red, and oxidize. So actually in China, what we call black tea, they call red tea, Hong Cha. There's and then we have oolong. Oolong is midway between green tea and black tea. The majority of tea that comes out of Japan is actually green tea. So only within the past 10 years has Japan really gone back to producing any other kinds of tea other than green tea. I do have a couple of very, very special teas. I've got a wakocha, which is a black tea from Japan, and I also have a spring harvest oolong. And the spring harvest oolong is quite interesting. It's a blend of 6 different cultivars from Hanayama, Shizuoka, and it's quite lovely. It really reminds me of some of the really high quality oolongs that are produced in high elevation Taiwan, actually. So it's got kind of a creamy sort of vegetal quality to it. Quite nice. The wakocha is also very nice. It's got this amazing sweetness to it that I would not have really placed with a black tea. But I do have those. But I did also want to talk a little bit about gyokuro. Gyokuro also translates as jade dew. So gyokuro is this tea that's kind of this buttery, sweet grass, and it's absolutely gorgeous. They shade grow it for about 3 weeks prior to harvesting. Okay. I'm still within my half hour. They shade grow it for 3 weeks prior to harvesting. This one is actually hand-picked. So it's got this amazing umami and seaweedy quality along with this buttery grass. I love it. A lot of the green teas out of Japan, I describe in terms of how long they have been out of the lawnmower. So this one is like a hot, sweet grass that it's still steaming from the lawnmower bag. And others I'll describe as, this is a late summer lawn mowing. So, it's a lot of fun. Japanese teas are probably my favorite teas, and I'm just really lucky that we at the Teasmith are so particular about our Japanese teas, and Tim has developed relationships over the course of 20 years that we get to have a really great supply of matcha and amazing Japanese teas too. So I will possibly bring out my private stash of matcha that Tim brought back. So come and visit me out on the patio, please. Have some tea with me. I would really enjoy it. So, thank you.